Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Reverend David Douglas. Welcome to Signs of the Time. You know, in Matthew chapter 24, the disciples, after leaving the temple with Jesus, the Bible said that they were showing him the buildings of the temple. And he said, "See not all these things?" He said, "There shall not be one stone left upon another." And we know that that took place in AD 70 when the Romans came into Jerusalem. Titus and his army, they leveled Jerusalem and then they destroyed and burnt the temple. Then Jesus, the disciples, after he said that, said, "When shall these things be? What shall be the signs of thy coming and of the end of the world?" Today's subject, and we want to bring this out because I believe that it's a very important subject. And really, it's a very popular subject. And I know that I have brought out a lot of things, about this subject, about the third temple, the future third temple. But today, I want to tie the third temple into and with the Red Heifer. So I want to title this today, The Red Heifer and the Third Temple. So you might say, is the Red Heifer really needed to be able to build the third temple? The answer is yes. It is needed. And as you know, again, there has not been a temple in Jerusalem ever since 70 AD. And there has not been a red heifer sacrifice and even the ashes of the red heifer in over 2,000 years. So, why is the red heifer needed to be able to begin, even the building of the third temple? I've spoke a lot about it. I've, gave what I feel like, my opinion, really according to the scriptures, according even to some of the Jewish tradition, where I believe that even the location is. But I've never really brought out about the importance of the red heifer when it comes down to building the third temple. The Temple Mount area, where the Dome of the Rock sits, that area is forbidden for Jewish people to ascend onto politically, because, it is controlled by the Jordanian Waqf. It is also forbidden theologically because, according to the Jewish law, it is wrong for a Jew to walk over the site of, really at one time, where the Holy of Holies used to sit, without going through the biblical standards of being pure. It is a holy area, a place where the first and second temple once stood. They also say, and really some of the rabbis, that no one really knows where the Holy of Holies once stood either. So they're afraid, like I said, that somebody may walk in an area where they should not walk, them, being Jewish. You can see even videos, and I've watched these, where Jewish people at different times are allowed to walk around just below the place where the Dome of the Rock now sits. And they even had to be escorted by even armed police. We know that it has been in the hearts of the Jewish people to have a temple built again on the Temple Mount. Ever since 1987, and I've mentioned this several times, the Temple Institute in Jerusalem has been making plans to build the third temple. You know, they really need permission some way and a way made to be able to begin even to build the third temple. But yet there's even another piece of what you might say, another piece to the puzzle that they have been waiting on for centuries now. That is the appearance of an unblemished red heifer cow. In fact, they need the ashes of the red heifer. As I have said, they need to be pure, but yet they need these ashes to be able, like I said, to be pure, to be able to go up on top of the Temple Mount where the third temple will be somewhere, sometimes in the near future. So, the Bible says this, so why can't they walk up there? You might say, why can't they even start, building? And I know that, even if it's mentioned today, a lot of them in the Muslim community, they get real upset. And some even says that if it's even started, that it might even cause World War III. But we know, according to the Bible, according to the Scriptures, that there will be a third temple built in Jerusalem, and I believe up on the Temple Mount. And my belief even on that it will one day sit side by side the Dome of the Rock. And I believe that way will be made. God will make a way for the Jewish people to have their temple again. And I know every time that I put something on here about this, somebody's going to make a comment. That's okay. You got a right to your opinion. But when it comes to the third temple, I do believe that we as Christians, our body is the temple of the Holy Ghost. But yet me as a Christian, I don't need the third temple, but the Jewish people does. So the Jewish people, even right now, feel like that they are unclean, that they're really not pure. And that's why they don't want them to go up on the Temple Mount. Numbers 19, the 19th chapter tells us all about the red heifer cow, about what all they need to have to go through even to sacrifice it. You say, well, why? How have they become unclean? When you look at Numbers chapter 19, it talks about us, and not just us, we as Gentile, but the Jewish people at different times have been around where there's been, death, people that have died, whether a hospital, whether a funeral, or whether they've even walked through a cemetery. Numbers 19 and 13 says this, whosoever toucheth a dead body of any man, and that really means actually any human being, whether male or female, whosoever toucheth a dead body of any man that is dead, and purifieth not himself, defileth the tabernacle of the Lord. Let me stop there. When this law was given, the Solomon's temple, the temple was not built. They had the tabernacle in the wilderness, and then I believe it was finally set up at Shiloh once they got into the promised land. So if they have been around any dead bodies and they have not purified themselves, they will defile the tabernacle of the Lord. And that soul shall be cut off from Israel. Why? Because the water of separation was not sprinkled upon him. Said, he shall be unclean if this water is not sprinkled upon him, and his uncleanliness is yet upon him. So, let's just look at Numbers chapter 19 and kind of highlight what this chapter is saying, just for a few minutes. God told Moses to speak to the children of Israel that they were to bring a red heifer to the high priest. A red heifer without spot, where there's no blemish upon the red heifer, and upon which has never came a yoke. And he is to take this red heifer without the camp and slay her. Then he is to take the blood with his finger and sprinkle the blood directly before the tabernacle 7 times. Then they are to burn the heifer in his sight, her skin, her flesh, her blood, and her dung. Then the priest is to take cedar wood, hyssop, and scarlet, and cast it into the midst of the burning of the heifer. Then someone gathers up the ashes of the red heifer and keeps them in a clean place. They are to be used to put some of the ashes in what they call the water of separation. They said that it will possibly have to be spring water. And Jerusalem has the Gihon spring. They have the pool of Siloam, I believe, which is filled by the Gihon spring. So it's used to put into that water of separation just some of those ashes. And here is the reason and the main purpose. It is used for the purification of sin. They are told that they are unclean, like I said, if they have ever touched or been around someone that is dead. So, and they feel like, everyone probably, every Jew, has been around, some kind of death at some time. Like I said, whether in the hospital, a cemetery, or even in the home. So they feel like, that they've been unclean, according to the law because of this. So the Jewish people, and they need it to be placed in that water, then they are to be sprinkled upon by that water. They be sprinkled on by that water to help them and to make them pure. But the Jewish people have been for a long time praying at the Western Wall for the restoration of the temple. I believe the Jewish people are getting close to rebuilding the temple. The recent attack on Israel by Hamas could even be related to the arrival of the red heifer cows that took place September the 15th of 2022. And also, like I said, they're just getting close. It was getting close last year. This is the year 2024. It was getting real close for Israel and Saudi Arabia's normalization agreement. Hamas has even been quoted, and they've even said that the arrival of those 5 red heifer cows provoked the October 7th attack. We know that there's even other things, and like I said, it was getting close for them and Saudi Arabia, to have their peace agreement, their normalization. And Hamas even called this attack on October the 7th, Operation Alaska Flood. And I believe that also, like I said, that attack had to be something to do with Saudi Arabia and Israel's normalization talks. So when I thought about that Operation Alaska Flood, they got the Alaska Mosque and that area, and I believe it's concerning that area where the Dome of the Rock is, where the Alaska Mosque is. They know that these red heifer cows, that if it ever takes place, it could help Israel, to be just that much closer to be able to rebuild that temple. And that this radical group is trying to stop this process. And I mean, it has even been said that Saudi Arabia wants control of the Temple Mount. They want to be given control of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and they want to have control, like I said, of Mecca and Medina. All these three sites are really, holy even to the Muslims. So with these three red heifer cows arriving in Israel on September the 15th, the year 2022, it is showing the world that Israel is getting close to rebuilding the third temple. The Temple Institute, like I said, is providing and making the furnishings of the temple, and they also been training the priests to be able to carry out the work of temple worship. But get this, but even the priest has to be pure to carry out their priestly duties. The red heifers that arrived in Israel on September the 15th, 2022, are even coming to age to be able to be sacrificed. I believe when they arrived in Israel, September the 15th, 2022, their ages were somewhere then around 5 to 8 months. But the red heifer cows, if I have researched this right, needs to be at least 3 years old. They say that even one of the red heifer cows now have been disqualified. They can't have one white hair, one black hair, or otherwise they can't have no more than, one. They have to be pure, they have to be a red and no blemish, but one of the red heifers have been disqualified, so that leaves 4. One of those 4, if it remains unblemished, and the talks, and even in the news and the way that the Jewish people are talking right now, one of them could be sacrificed by Passover of this year, which is 2024. They've already even purchased land on the Mount of Olives. So, if it is sacrificed this year, the way things are going, the way that the war has been going on as far as in Israel, it will probably have to be done in secret. It has been said since the time of Moses, and this is in Jewish tradition, that there has been 9 red heifer cows to be sacrificed, and their ashes were used. They said the 10th one, when it is sacrificed and they gather up the ashes, that this 10th red heifer cow will usher in the Messiah, even according to Jewish prophecy. So they need to sacrifice the red heifer and save and use the ashes for the water of purification. And after the sacrifice of the red heifer, they could be, like I said, almost just like one step away from rebuilding the third temple. I mean, they would just need the permission. They would just need that way made. They would be able to purify and, to be able to allow these people to be clean, have that water sprinkled on them, to be able to do this thing that they need to do in order to restart, to start again their temple worship, their temple sacrifices, and their offerings to be received in that location of the Temple Mount. So the red heifer is vital. I mean, it's very important. They've been looking, when I seen as far as the video, the film footage, when these 5 red heifer cows, they came, I believe, from some ranches in Texas. When they arrived at the Ben Gurion Airport there in Tel Aviv, the Jewish people that was there began to sing and begin to rejoice because this has not took place. I think they thought that they had had some, earlier, in years, at some years and in times past, but, it failed. But if one of these red heifer cows stays pure, not no more than one or red black hair on them, they stay unblemished, they could be able to sacrifice that red heifer cow, at least one of them, they say, by Passover of 2024. We'll just have to see. But that red heifer is real vital for the Jewish people in the rebuilding of the third temple. And the third temple is a sign, I believe with all of my heart, it is a sign that we are entering into the time of the end that Daniel prophesied. So, prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. God could be, as far as the day or someday in the near future, God could be at that moment, at that day, be opening up the pages, unfolding the pages of what has been prophesied in the Holy Scriptures. Daniel talked about the temple in Daniel 9:27. Jesus talked about when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. That's talking about the temple. Paul prophesied that the Antichrist would sit in the temple of God and declare himself as God. John, when he saw the visions and saw the events of the book of Revelation, Revelation 11, verses 1 and 2, John saw a temple. And that at that point, when John saw that temple, there was not a temple. It had been destroyed for at least 25 years. So I believe, are in the generation that Jesus is soon to return. Like I said, God could be opening the pages of prophecy for our eyes to see what people, and even what the Jewish people have been waiting on for centuries. The rebuilding of the third temple. They have the red heifers. They are in the land of Israel in some secret location. They're just getting ready for that time that they will be able to sacrifice the red heifer cow and use the ashes for the water of purification, the water of separation, and for them to be able to start the rebuilding of the temple. So thank you for being with us today and listening to this video. Thank you for those who have subscribed to this channel. We need more. So please help me out as far as today. Just click that subscribe button. There's no charge to it. It would even help us out with these videos. Give us a thumbs up. That will help a lot. Subscribe. That will help a lot. And also make a comment. Our comments are open. Always remember the words of Jesus, our Savior. These words that he left us as far as in the Holy Bible. Said, when you see these things come to pass, lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Saints of God, Jesus is coming soon. God bless you is my prayer.